we have Fletcher, Burnside, and Skubik attending. We do not have Mark Fleschauer or Tom Myers. So we have 3. We have a quorum. First act of business, and just for administrative, we have 2 commissioners at the table, but they are not participating. They're not at all. So don't take any looks in the eyes and say you can't do that because one's cross-eyed. Or
And don't ask me any questions.
No question, no discussion. First action is to approve the minutes, and you might note in the packet that we have the original minutes are in the packet, and the revised minutes that we all worked on after that February meeting are in the packet. And so we're being asked to approve that, and I would move that we approve all of these at one time unless you have an issue. And if you have an issue, identify which ones you have an issue for or on.
No, I didn't have an issue because I read through these. Pretty much what we had in that last meeting.
Right. And yours probably has the same thing as I have. I have like 6 copies of the original ordinance. That's a copy of so
I printed
somebody
my own
put
out.
6 on the machine.
That's okay. I printed my own.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem.
Okay.
So I
motion
second
is
it.
to second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's approved. Third order of business is the quarterly financial statements, and we'll go through it. You're prepared for that? Go through that. Any preference to how you want to proceed with this?
Usually David walks through it. So.
Generally speaking, first order, I want to point out that this is really a trimester report. It's not a quarterly report. This is as of the end of October.
Right.
Okay. So
I looked at that
July,
4 times and thought, yeah, okay,
July,
okay.
August,
It is.
September,
That's why we got.
October.
That's why we're
Now, I
a third of the
made,
way through the
I,
year.
ma- I made a conscious decision that, since this
Yeah.
is probably better
We're
to
fine.
just,
We're fine with
let's
that.
try.
But
So
I looked at
better
it
to
4
be
times.
more
when you look at
It's a third of the year.
the things that are, it's about a third of the year, and revenue. Generally speaking, we always deficit spend the first quarter, first third of the year, with the exception of the B part fund. So what we see is basically a negative budget to actual revenue less expense in the general and the water fund, but over on the B part fund, because we haven't had to pay our debt service that's due later in the year, we should be like $1 million to the good. But that's a normal kind of thing. Now, what we'll start seeing next month, December, we'll start collecting ad valorem taxes, and those went out
And
last
the money
week.
for the cans.
Yeah.
The money for the cans, the blue cans, that's in
That-
the budget, right?
Yeah.
That's also just before the end of the year.
Those are kind of the cats and dogs, but at the January time frame, we'll be halfway through, and our water revenues will be, we'll start the intersecting the expense curve with the revenue curve in the water fund. So usually it takes about a half year to get flush in the cash flow on the water side, enterprise fund side, and of course, it's the B part fund when we pay the big ticket items out in the B part fund, then that'll level off. There's a couple of generally operationally, there's nothing untowardly in the budget actuals. I would like to point out, and I've shared this with the commissioners, that Hurricane Florence and Matthew, they really have eaten up the overtime lines.
Michael.
I say Matthew again. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
I
okay.
just got- you know,
It's
the
my-
last two are
We know what you're
really
talking about.
Florence.
The other end.
Florence,
That's
yeah.
That's okay.
Florence.
No, we understand.
Has
The brothers in it.
has hit those lines pretty hard. Now we'll get that back, through the FEMA reimbursements, but those are anomalies, and they go through this budget like a watermelon through a snake. It's all at one time.
So really, October, November, you get huge from your estimated, your year-to-date, which would be July, right?
On
When you
the-
say year-to-date, at the end of the year is from July, right?
July,
Yes,
yeah,
July
right,
first.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is, you almost by the end of December last year, you brought in $1.7 million.
And
this
and
year,
what are
we've
you
only got
talking?
40. I'm looking
revenue?
at your
In
ad
valorem.
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 Ad
Oh,
valorem
yeah.
taxes.
So there's a huge chunk coming in November, December.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just before
really,
the-
the last 2 or
Right.
3 weeks of December
December.
Yeah.
is when it
Yeah.
just
Yeah, and it's
comes all through.
almost you planned it almost flat because there's only like $40,000 difference from last year
in the budget estimate.
estimated
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and we try to link that back to new home construction.
Right.
That's probably the best indicator there.
Yeah,
Everything
building
else.
permits are there's only $8,000 difference, so there isn't much.
Everything else considered equal without a tax increase,
Right.
just discounting that. It's pretty flat. We've got a pretty stable construction industry, but that does segue into. I would like to point out there's a couple of new funds, and historically we've had 4 funds. Fund 10 is general fund, Fund 30 is water fund, Fund 50 is the B part fund, and Fund 60 is the capital dredging account. This year's budget saw the creation of the new capital reserve accounts. And in the budget, I would point out that just because the way the chart of accounts is set up, those account numbers are designated as Fund 20, Fund 20. Is that 40?
It's
And
labeled that
40.
capital reserve.
Okay,
It's
Fund 20, that's our
40,
water,
60.
right?
It's the capital reserve.
20, 40, and 90 are the 3 accounts.
Yeah, but doesn't it read that 20 is water, sewer, 40 is water, one's water, one's sewer, one's beach and inlet cap, the way you had it?
That's
but
correct.
Okay.
It's like capital reserve.
No, but what I'm
fund.
saying is, this is exactly what it is, but 20 is the water.
Yeah.
40
but
is the sewer.
Yeah.
And
That's all I'm
90 is
saying.
the beach
And not
inlet.
even
That's
just
exactly
the-
right.
The money
That's
we
right.
established for beach.
So I just wanted to we haven't seen that in the past, and along with the fund balance appropriations and the moving of monies into escrow into those funds, that I usually wait until after the beginning of the new year when we have collected large amounts of ad valorem taxes. Just as so, I mean, if you haven't collected money, you can't set it aside in general terms. So you won't see an actual transaction in there per se until after probably in the 3rd quarter. Once we have some money to work with in the accounts.
So on the ad valorem taxes prior,
That's when
were you just underestimating, or you actually
those
collected more than you thought, or?
No, those are actually taxes that were due in the prior year.
Right.
You didn't pay your
But
taxes.
you got more than was due. You said 19, and you got 20,730.
What
So
we
have
see,
no back taxes left, or there's still a lot left?
what we see is that those are back taxes, and what we see is we make an estimate based on historical data. But What that line is directly tied to, and the reason why that is up, is that it's a favorable sales environment. Because you have to remember that when the sales happen,
gotta do it.
you have to come flush
bring
with your
clean,
money.
gotta bring
So
clean.
that's you gotta. So that's
Gotcha.
a
Okay.
direct.
If I understand your first part of the statement, David, the estimate isn't 100% collection rate.
No.
That's correct.
Didn't anticipate it.
Yeah,
Hasn't
so
in the
you could
past.
be over
Yeah,
without the
Yeah.
second part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the prior year taxes, that's not, prior year tax collection estimate, there's not a statutory formula like there is on the ad
No.
valorem collection tax base, and that's really, that's really just a linear estimate.
Well,
that
this
we
year's
make.
almost exactly what last year's was.
But we also know how much outstanding taxes there are,
Yet to come.
and we've had that discussion before. We don't go back and pursue it because until the interest rates get up, the penalties for back taxes are such that it's a better investment than what we can get on.
Right.
So let it ride
yeah, don't pay it,
Right.
please.
Yeah, I'll tell everybody you don't want their taxes paid.
Yeah, we probably don't.
until they sell their house.
So those for the capital reserve fund accounts, those transactions haven't been made yet.
Okay. On the second page, you have a fund balance appropriated of 50,000.
In the general fund,
Yeah, just
Yeah,
before
that's-
Fund 10. Where's
that's-
that from?
that's the
It's 50,000, second page of the, page 2. Yeah, page
Yeah.
2.
That's the budgetary entry that basically balances the books, revenues to expenses. But that's your general
So you're,
fund.
so
That's
you're
your
taking it
general.
out of your general fund.
Yeah.
So that's a general fund.
Yeah, that's and so all
Yeah.
Fund 10 is
Correct,
general.
just to
fund.
make it balanced.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if you'll note that $50,000 as a relative measure against almost 3.5 million, that's down there in the 0.01%
Yeah.
range,
And on your
way inside of
On
it.
your sewer and water capacity charges, are you going to have to go to the board and ask for adjustment for the budget?
No,
As you
there's-
had 173,000 expected, and
well,
if the rate doesn't change, you won't get that much.
Well, there aren't any capital expenses programmed against those charges. They're just
So it
set
will be
aside
Okay.
hypothetically for future expenses until I don't plan on going back
So
to
you
the
won't
board.
need more money because of that.
I think it's a wasted exercise. and-
Okay,
and
yeah. I just want to make sure that,
We're just going to let it ride.
gotcha. Okay. So you both understand what happened with that? We were thinking we would raise a lot of money from
Yeah.
the buying you equity in the fund. Changed it for now.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to go forward, but we changed. And what he planned on right now is not coming.
Right.
Again, there's not an expense programmed against that capital account.
Yeah.
So there's
It's just an estimated revenue you're not going to get.
And on page 3, you've got the accommodation tax. You got $1,919,000, and you've collected $1,007,000.
summertime. See, our
That's
big
last
months
year's
are
peak
June,
part.
Well, I was going
July,
to ask, do we
and
not
August.
get anything April, May, and June?
You can get a few.
Just
a
a
little
few,
bit.
but
You
not
can get a
much.
little
When do
bit.
the rentals really
And it
kick
lags,
in?
right?
Yeah,
Because most of it,
it's June, July, August, and September.
Yeah.
It's right. Well, June's collections hit the books in July, so you get July, August, September. You get a lot of
so
money
we
in
don't
those
really
3
have a
months.
6-month hot rental period.
You pick
No.
back up May.
April and May are
10
not.
weeks.
In June,
Yeah.
even just starting out.
That's right.
When school gets out.
12 or 14 weeks is your peak.
100 days. It's 100 days.
That's
100 days of summer.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
David, if we're going in order, can I go back to page 1? I just had a question on miscellaneous.
Begin
Is
at
that
the beginning.
hurricane related?
Where is that?
About a third of the way down.
7,000.
10,335.
That would be, in this instance, I'd actually have to look, but that's probably where we book any surplus disposition, we've replaced a vehicle and we auction it off on
Oh.
gov deals. We plow that money back into the general fund for appropriation.
It just looked like something that wasn't planned.
Yeah, where's that
being
money
that
coming
big
from?
variance.
38,000.
That, I'd have to double check, but that's probably vehicles that have been replaced. Those are surplus vehicles.
Oh, you sold them? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I know that the police department,
They
they
got new
say,
ones, right?
well, they like to say, well, you know, we sold the police vehicle, we want to reinvest that in another cop car. It's, well, no, that money goes to the general fund for reappropriation because that's where the money came from.
But don't we know we're going to sell some every year?
Yeah, but I'm hesitant to
budget it.
basically see what the market's gonna get me on the used car. I mean, but what we continually to be surprised with is, man, you can put a cop sticker on something on a cardboard box, and it I don't know, it's got some type of magic fairy dust as far as people wanting it.
Oh, if you get an old black and white with a spotlight,
You know, like
Yeah.
the Blues Brothers
Yeah.
drove.
Yeah, it has added value.
Yeah,
people love to,
it's
and it
just-
looks like a cop car. So
Yeah.
this cool guy out there looks like they think he's a cop.
Well,
with the
Well-
plain rims, you know, the steel rim.
So with your investments, did you change investment strategy?
Where are you on
Page
that?
3, halfway down.
Page 3.
You were expecting 6,500 and you got 15,000 already in the first third.
Page 3.
5329
Where are you?
Midway.
Yeah,
In the B part fund? I mean,
and 50, yeah. You collected 15,000 already and you were budgeting 6,500.
Yes.
For the year.
we've changed investment strategies, but some of this, and the markets have ticked up, but some of this also has to deal with the timing of when the interest
You
when the
collect it,
interest
when you collect
is
it.
collected.
But if
So-
you're thinking
but we're
65
getting,
and you got 15 already.
yeah, but we changed capital management trust. That's B part investments there, and they've really come ahead. I mean, we were getting like nothing,
Sure,
and
yeah.
it's come up to 219,
Yeah.
And BB&T went to
Yeah.
2.25.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know we're going to see some reality.
Yeah, because last year you were flat. It was the same in the budget. It didn't happen.
It was nothing.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that collectively. Don't hold me to this, but we're gonna probably be, unless you know we make unless we pull a lot of principal out of our kitty, we're probably going to be in the neighborhood of $100,000 across the board on interest earnings.
On page 3 again with that transfer from the general fund for to pay, I think it's to pay the payments to the B part fund for the
Yeah, so that's one of those transactions that's directly related to the
2%
the-
tax rate, right?
the 2% tax rate. We don't make that transfer until we collect the taxes on the.
So there's more to come.
Well, that's the budget number.
But
Yeah.
isn't-
There has nothing
was
happened
that
yet.
number like 800,000 or something like that?
No, the transfer is 564,000.
Last year it was
We just
806.
haven't done that yet.
You haven't done it yet, but
Yeah.
is that the maximum you're going to?
That's
Was that the full 2% tax?
that is the 2 cent
Or
tax
the 2, not
plus
2, it's 7 or whatever that we charge for the B part
It-
bill to pay the bill, to pay the loan.
The amount that'll transfer is 564,000. We just haven't made that yet.
I understand that part.
Yeah. And it was higher last year. For what reason?
So are we not
Last
transferring?
year it was over 100, a little over 100, 800.
Yeah.
I was
So
just
we're
curious.
not transferring the full amount that we are taxing people for to pay that bill?
It's directly tied to the amount that
Oh,
we
okay.
that you've increased the tax rate.
Flat percentage.
It's directly tied to that amount When I'm having to remember here,
I'm trying to help you, but I can't. My computer's
Yeah.
not working.
Previously there was 2 cents. I'm
Yeah.
having a failure of the mind here.
Did we do like 7 cents?
It was 7 cents.
The
So
whole thing-
it was like
We put
8.65, and
seven-
this
It's
year
seven,
we
but
didn't
you
do that.
split it between two, and different percentages went different ways of the 7. Isn't that right?
But it shouldn't. The whole 7 was to pay the bill.
The whole,
To pay
yeah,
the-
but
pay the debt.
yeah, part of it was for advertising, part of it was for.
Now you're thinking.
Oh,
No,
I'm
you're
thinking- I'm
talking
thinking the B
cents.
part,
They're
yeah.
talking cents.
Oh, you're talking cents. Okay, I was talking
Yeah, the 7
percent.
cent tax we did
Okay.
was to pay like 800,000 of the debt.
Okay.
And the other would come out of the B part fund.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we're clear on this though. I don't want you to make an assumption that that transfer amount is not what the commissioners approved. That
So I understand, this
564,000.
will maybe.
That 564,000 was the amount that the commissioners said that they wanted to transfer, because you have to
Well,
remember.
that's what you put in the proposal.
Well, but you also have to remember that there is an allocation that goes to the capital reserve account. It's not just the debt service on the special obligation bond. There is an appropriation over and above
So that amount would be added to this. in
the
effect.
the $3 million that the commissioners wholesale appropriated out,
Right.
and that amount is reflected in Fund 90
It's
as
241.
$241,000, which is equivalent to
The
2
That's
extra
8
cents.
Yes, okay. That's
So
it.
if you divided the 564 by what a penny is, you're going to get somewhere to the tune
About
of
5
you've
cents.
appropriated 3 cents of tax money to go to the special obligation bond, and another 2 cents to escrow for the capital
Gotcha. Fine.
investment fund, beach fund.
Gotcha.
That's, generally speaking, I think that's accurate.
My only other, anybody else any questions on revenue? I had one other question on revenue, and that was the capital reserve funds. When they're invested correctly.
That's correct.
Where does their interest go? Is that to the
Goes
general
to the,
fund?
no, those
Or to
those
the
funds,
Earn their
interest
money,
earned, the
goes to their
interest,
fund.
yeah, because that's,
So that money we put in that capital reserve should earn interest
Mm-hmm.
as we go forward.
And David, this, my understanding is that the funds for all of the canal dredging,
yeah. Are you
They're-
on
they're
revenues?
paid- they're
Are you on
paid-
revenues?
right, on the revenue side,
Mhm.
they're gonna pay that out this year, but it's reimbursed for next year? That was the way it was going? Or something like that?
That program is set up so that it's a standalone budget.
Right,
And if you didn't have a grant in place, so those, I think it's like $2.5 million.
mhm,
So it was a programmatic budget based on what the assumption to dredge the whole canal
Right.
system would be, plus an amount that would be left over that those canal subdivisions felt like they wanted to keep in escrow just to, keep the pump running.
right,
The actual grant funds are not budgeted per se, but whenever those reimbursements for the expense happen, they will be credited into the miscellaneous revenue lines in each one
Okay.
of the canal dredging
Right.
subdivisions.
Okay.
For example, though, it's a good question. If you look at page 3 on the revenue.
okay,
Revenue page?
Yeah, the revenue page.
if you look down at the very bottom, which is Fund 60, that's Holden Beach Harbor's canal, or fund, the start of it is Holden Beach Harbor. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down, SRF, HBS, miscellaneous.
Is it 47,000?
It was budgeted at 47, and so we've actually received almost $20,000 of reimbursed expenses
Gotcha.
back in. And what we know that the miscellaneous revenue estimate, that's just a placeholder, and whenever those expense reimbursements come in, that revenue line is the actual is going to grossly exceed what the budget is. But that's, since we're having to front the money and then get it back, there's some, we weren't really sure on exactly what might not be allowed or what might be allowed, so we were really conservative on that. But the grant's like $1.5 million.
Right.
You know, so
Which
there'll be those canal subdivisions are getting 2/3 of those expenses paid.
Well, almost everybody you talk to, they all think it's like you pay this year and you're almost a free thing this year because you're getting it paid back the next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way they're looking at it anyhow. And then, what was that? Oh, just my FYI, probably not in on this, but those who do not pay their canal dredging,
Just like a tax.
right? So when they sell,
Just
they
like-
get dinged. Okay,
Just like a tax.
All right.
To include penalties and
good,
interest.
good.
Is that frequent? Do a lot of people not paying?
Just like a tax.
I mean, really, it's
It
yeah,
doesn't-
you get, and it's a list. It's the same people.
What we do see, because those canal dredging fees are somewhat less than, I mean, they vary amongst each canal, but generally speaking, they're less than the $500 water capital fee, and they're certainly less than the tax fee. When folks get pinched, a lot of times, what we'll see is they won't pay the canal dredging fee just because that's a less amount. But generally speaking, it's the same ratio of
Sure.
non-pays as
Yeah.
like the taxes.
And it's usually the same people. I've noticed
We
that.
keep an eye on that. That canal dredging
Yeah.
working group really
They watch that carefully.
has a problem with people not paying their
Yeah,
But
canal
each canal
dredging
has its
fee.
own group, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, that's right.
That's a FYI, not related to audit stuff.
Okay.
Do you have flexibility in the programs where you have all this budgeting and everything where you could literally take everybody's salary, insurance and everything and print it out total on one page by department? Rather than doing all that, I mean, literally see it so it's a comparison from one year to the next. You can see each department. Is that capable in the system?
That's more of an Excel spreadsheet exercise. That's a manual.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. Because I know I do that for the chapel. It takes a lot of time. But, boy, it makes it a whole lot easier when you can look and you see the chunk. And you know how you've changed from year to year and everything
Well, it's
else.
hard for us to answer the question when people ask you.
No, I
what's
know,
it cost
because
to
you
run
gotta
the
go
town?
through these and
What
have
are the
these-
salaries for everybody? Well,
No,
let me go
really,
through all
now-
the departments that
now-
they have.
I was just trying to
Now
make it
we-
easy.
Now, we did go through that exercise in the budget message where those were rolled up at a macro level to address categorical
Yeah.
expenses.
Yeah.
I mean, those were, that has been done, but that's a manual. That's
Okay.
It's a lot of work.
No, I know. Trust me, I know it's a lot of work. But I just didn't know if you had the capabilities in the system to... Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Pretty much.
I wouldn't think
You would
unless
have to
there's a
pull it.
tail
It
end
would
on
just
the
It's all
transfer.
manual.
on the
You would have to pull
database
out.
system
Yeah,
that
okay.
would allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the financial statements?
No.
How early in the month after the end of the quarter or period do you have the financial statements
The
out?
next day.
Next day.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that-
Now,
we're not
if it
restricted
falls,
as to when we can have our meeting scheduled.
if it falls on if the last day,
Holiday or something.
well, if you look at this run here, this was for the period ending 10/31.
And you ran it 11/1.
and I ran it the next day, and that was just during the week
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
If the end of the month falls on Saturday, I'll run
Yeah,
it on
because-
Monday
yeah.
and give it to Heather,
Yeah.
and she posted up. So
Yeah.
it's
the next
quick.
work
well,
day.
like last year, at the end of December, it ran on the 3rd of January. It was
Yeah.
fast.
And
Yeah.
how about for 30 June? Do you need to, can you do the same thing for 30 June?
yeah, it's
Okay.
just it's
Couple
just
days.
that, so
Max.
just realize. I mean, that's an unaudited
Gotcha.
Right.
kind of thing. But yeah, I mean it's pretty real time. I mean, if you wanted to know, if you said right now, David, can you run this right now? What we got? I go to the next room and print the same thing out.
Mhm.
You know.
Okay.
And again, this run that you guys have, this is basically mimics. We do this every month
Mhm.
and post it up on the town's website.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
So move
Now,
to number,
I don't know if anybody goes through it with any
well,
interest.
some do,
but,
some do.
you know,
A lot don't.
it's
A
there.
lot look to the board.
You got the budgeting so well under control now. There's not as many things to see as there used to be.
So number 4 is discussion of possible action on a revised audit committee charter and committee bylaws.
Wait a minute.
We
Got it.
prepared the last time some bylaws, but the board wasn't completely happy with what we had done. The attorney then came back and said what she thought would be wise, and we need to do this periodically anyway as an audit committee, is to review the charter. And she suggested we take the City of Fayetteville's charter, which had been reviewed by a lot of people, take as much as we could and put one together for ourselves. So a number of you have commented already, analyzed it. You have a audit committee charter and bylaws combined on the one page as 30.26. And it's up for discussion. So everybody's had a chance to see it already, I think, from the minutes. Any questions on it, or?
The only thing that gave me any concern, John, was what I mentioned to you, where on the meetings on point 8, where it says unless otherwise designated, all meetings are to be public meetings. I don't know what the public meetings
Well, public
rules
meetings,
are,
it has to be
but
announced ahead of time. It's a scheduled meeting.
yeah. I just didn't know
I'm sorry,
if somebody might
If
look
we
at that
meet-
unless otherwise designated,
Yeah.
thinking that
Unless
that just
it's one
means we
that's-
can do it at will,
No.
which
No,
we can't.
We cannot.
No, I know we can't,
Yeah.
but I don't know what
And
the
we
rules
have to
are.
have cause to have a meeting in which the public is not invited. And it has to be pretty restrictive as to what it's allowed, contract with an
Yeah.
attorney or an investigation, a personnel matter.
No, I know
Other
there
than
are
that,
rules.
ours are all
I'm just
public
afraid
meetings.
this doesn't convey there are rules.
Right.
Okay, she didn't have a problem with it. She-
Okay, then it's fine. The only other thing I saw was in point 11 on the other page. There's a
Well,
typo there.
back to
There's a
yours.
period in there.
Oh, that, on which?
Number 11. Other functions from time
Oh,
to
I
time.
didn't see that
period.
one. I corrected the other one. Okay. There was a comma where only it's and it shouldn't have been. That got
Okay,
one of
I'm
you,
sorry.
One of you sent that
Ron,
one
I
out,
didn't
didn't
know
you?
you.
No, that's okay. No. I was going to go back to your other.
Yeah.
Unless otherwise designated, who decides that? The Board of Commissioners? The committee?
No, we would, but with the lawyers or with our clerk's
Okay.
approval of what we're doing.
Okay.
That's going to have to be very careful for us. We're not about to go off and schedule something
Well,
about an issue
I knew we weren't, John, and
Without
I
the
was just
attorney.
afraid somebody might read it and think,
Well, I would think a normal person would read and say, so does that mean you can sometimes, but why?
Well, you can,
Yeah,
but there are
but-
reasons.
but-
Well,
but
and
maybe,
that's, it
it's
was
the rules on
exactly my
public meetings.
concern.
You know,
Yeah.
you got
yeah.
That'd be a personnel matter or an investigation or a
Yeah.
lawyer or a contract or, which we're not gonna have, so. The one thing that,
Well, it wouldn't be a contract, John.
No,
Because.
don't you have closed meetings for contracts?
No.
no,
All contracts would be open meeting?
yeah. Personnel, definitely,
Personnel is,
yeah, but other than that,
This board wouldn't be doing anything.
No.
no, we're not doing it anyway. The
No.
board's gonna be, we don't
yeah,
contract.
that's what I'm saying, so I don't know, do you even
Yeah.
need to have that in there? Or you do, okay.
I would suggest that I'm gonna speak and you just tell me to hush, unless I'm not invited to speak. I think that that you should delete 8. I don't think it needs to be said.
The rules are in place already for what's a
Those
public
rules
meeting and what
are-
isn't.
Yeah,
Or,
Right.
And-
I
and how
would
long-
recommend
I don't
that
think
you just
she would have a
delete
problem with
number
that.
8.
So we just delete that.
I mean,
Good
because it's-
suggestion.
We okay with that?
Yep.
My recommendation on these, and we didn't, Noel and I didn't talk about that. I did talk with the clerk though. We have 5
Excuse me.
meetings planned, so they're gonna be planned meetings. We need to pick the dates for that,
That'd be
I
great.
think
make
you
it
should,
firm,
it should be
and
upfront.
having done that,
Yep,
then that's an publicly announced meeting at which we can add something to the agenda or have a other business. If otherwise it's a special meeting, if we just decide, next Thursday we're gonna meet, that's a special meeting. You can't change, you have to have exactly what you're gonna talk about. You can't talk about anything else.
Well, you can talk about other stuff, but all of the members to that committee have to be present or provided
And a unanimous decision,
a
right?
written acquiescence to adding something.
And it has to be-
It's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah. So if you agree that it's probably better.
I think it would help a lot.
It helps us as to.
You know, the one here that says everybody will be here at every meeting, that would help a lot
Well,
if we
that-
knew farther in advance.
And I
yes.
think if we get somebody, as we did before, somebody who doesn't come a lot, then we'd probably think about, we need somebody
Yeah.
else on the.
Yeah,
In what you could do, because the organizational perspective says that you gotta, it talks about their, in January, appoints people in January.
Yeah.
What you could do is have that schedule adopted at the first quarterly meeting or in January at the organizational meeting or whatever
Right.
you want to call it.
Yeah.
That would be the time to do that instead of trying to do it now.
Mhm.
Because
Well, we need to put it in our bylaws.
yeah.
But this is not accepted until the board accepts it. The board has to
are
approve
you gonna
this.
be able to schedule that 5th meeting? Isn't that dependent
I-
on when the auditor's
Yeah,
done?
It will be, but I think if we do it and the auditor could meet with us a couple of weeks before they issue a final audit, we need to be involved and to listen to what the auditor is going to say in the audit
Mhm.
as the role of the audit committee. We've been waiting months later and the board's been waiting months later and that's just not right. We need to,
Yeah, no, I agree. It seems to be the way it works with
Yeah.
the auditors.
Yeah,
well, it may be, and it may be that we have to reschedule that date.
Yeah.
But to make sure we can meet with the
It'd
auditor.
be good to schedule it. It's just a,
But the board needs to know before, have inputs before that thing is finalized and sent out public about what answers were
Yeah.
put in. Just the board needs to understand what the issues are and how they're being addressed. So what I would suggest, and I did it on mine, and you would to tell me which ones you think it should be. I print out the wrong one. Oh, here you go. So, I just picked a Tuesday morning, the 3rd Tuesday morning of the month. Now that I know that it's immediate, we can make it any earlier, any day that's better for us. But we need to have met and done everything before the board meeting of that month so that the audit committee can address the board as to what they, if they had issues or what they found, and
Would it be
Just-
better to do the second Tuesday?
could do the second Tuesday. Is
So you
is
don't have
Tuesday
so much-
okay? I'm okay with any of them.
Well,
And we try to be, so is there
Well,
something you have that's
I won't be
conflicting?
there because chapel has the second Tuesday of every month as a finance meetings for.
All right,
Oh,
so
yeah,
give me
I have
another
to go to
day. It
that,
doesn't have to
too.
be Tuesday,
Well,
any day of the week.
I'm trying to suggest that in your bylaws that you adopt a schedule at your January meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you will have members hypothetically appointed by the Board of Commissioners in January.
Well, then we have to
Because-
call a special meeting to do that.
Well, I mean,
That's
maybe
okay.
February or whatever,
Yeah,
but
we
right
can
now
do
you're
that.
trying to.
You could
You're
do
right.
it at the first
Yeah,
meeting.
because you may have a whole different group of people. And their
that's-
schedules may be tied in
that's
different.
true. That's
And you've
true.
got
You can put in the
two
bylaws that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just suggest in the
Okay.
bylaws that a,
So there would be,
Just
we
put-
will set at the after the January selection of new members,
Right.
we will schedule a special meeting to establish
Correct.
the meeting dates.
Right.
I'll work with Heather we can work this out so we take it to the board, because this is what we have to take to the board.
I'm going to take one step back, okay? This, on back to number 8 again. More and more I think about this. If we only say that all audit committees are to be public meetings, then there's going to be confusion if something special comes up.
We're taking it out.
No, I said you took it out. I'm saying is there has to be some kind of a statement that's separate above and beyond unless there's special something or other.
well, the
Well, we said
open-
unless otherwise designated.
No, but I mean, but
the
as a
open
whole totally
meetings
separate
law-
line.
The open meetings law prescribes the conduct of business for all public bodies.
Okay, all right,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the rules, it's
Okay.
for everybody.
okay. Okay.
So we will say I'll make a separate one that at a January
Mhm.
special meeting, the committee will adopt its meeting schedule,
Yearly meetings.
yearly meeting schedule. Okay, so at a January special meeting, the committee will adopt its, but that will have to be after the board
It'd have
meeting
to be
in which
after
the
the
board
third
approves
Tuesday.
any members, because the board has to approve any members to the
That's right.
audit committee. I'll even put in following
Following
Approval by the Board of
BOC
Commissioners.
meeting.
approving member approval by the Board of Commissioners. Okay. Any other issues with it?
Are you just talking about the bylaws?
Both, the charter as well.
I've got some questions about the charter. Because it's my understanding that the commissioners just sent the bylaws to the audit committee to be reviewed and not so much the charter itself. But that notwithstanding, I do have a couple of questions about the things that are proposed in the charter, which is an ordinance. In number 4, in the existing ordinance that it has in there in consultation with the town manager, that is, the way this reads is that the audit committee, without consultation with the town's manager, is going to advise the board on the town's treasury management function. And that specifically, if you'll remember, John, when the audit committee, when you first came on the board and the audit committee first was stood up, that was something that we collaborated on and put in there to reflect what the manager's needs would be. But more specifically,
this seems to portray that the audit committee is now going to advise the board on the town's treasury management function, and that specifically conflicts with 159 that says that the finance officer is responsible for investing the town's idle funds. So
I don't think it conflicts. And I think when Noel and I talked about this, we assumed, and I had that in there that she said, but it's assumed, the committee's not gonna do things without working through, and we have to work through the town manager, or for anything. There's no way this board has the authority to, it would be silly for us to come forward to the board with a recommendation that we didn't talk to the management, by the way. And she said it was assumed that we do that. And it would be through you. We wouldn't talk about the treasury function without having talked to the treasurer. That would be sort of
telling you that
presumptuous.
159 says that the
Well, you are responsible. That doesn't mean the board can't watch what you do.
supervises
That's right.
the investment.
That's right. And the audit committee watches what you're doing and discusses it with the board. You had others?
It also uses some language about ensuring internal control systems are in place, which kind of infers to me that now that instead of an advisory capacity, that there is some type of operational aspect of the audit committee's role.
In terms of oversight?
Well, ensure to me that's like guarantee, ensure, or else is the next word that I hear. Again, I think that's a management responsibility.
It is, and it's the audit committee's role to make sure that's done as a service to the board.
Ensure town management implements audit report recommendations. There may be audit report recommendations that are not achievable.
There always have been.
And so
There always have been.
Yeah, sure.
Due to the size of the staff.
That ensure is, I think that is room for disconnect there. Those are my comments.
Okay, well, Noel is, and this is copied from the Fayetteville one, which she thought was one of the better ones to do. But I think the audit committee is pretty straightforward. It's a cooperative function, but it does have oversight responsibility. It's to protect the board from its fiduciary responsibilities.
Is David's point on that last one, though? I mean, it seems to be valid that we cannot ensure that all the audit recommendations are implemented.
Well, but we're subject to check them to see if they are, and if they're not, advise the board. If the town is not implementing recommended things that it should have,
Well, someone can't.
well, they can't, then they can't. Then the
Yeah.
board's going to say, well, we can't do that. Or he's going to say, all right. And that would be the answer. We don't,
But to David's point, we're not ensuring
just
it's
because the auditor said
implemented.
it doesn't mean it's got to happen. Yeah,
We're ensuring it's dealt with.
Right,
dealt with, yeah,
It's addressed.
right.
right.
I did have one other comment, and it relates to internal controls because it specifically mentions information technology, security, and control. Information technology, there's a broad spectrum because you've got technology, you've got information systems, you've got information processes, and you have information software. I don't know where technology is, are the doors to the computer room locked up, or
Or what are you doing to ensure that you don't get hacked and all the things that shut down, or that you don't get hijacked for your data? And that's not just us in a little town. That's every big corporation in the country today has been hacked already at least once. It's just, I think this was to make sure that, or just to help
well,
the board satisfied that we're not taking risks that we shouldn't take.
And my thing is that's information technology security is is far beyond financial considerations. There are,
But it also includes financial.
as a piece of it.
Yeah.
That's a broad universe because we're talking cops, we're talking water and sewer systems, we're talking personal information that's not necessarily related to finances. So this is another whole other universe of responsibility that the audit committee is now being asked to advise on.
Well, it's not advising on it. It's working with the town and then keeping the board apprised of its assessment as it went along. Not going to tell you what to do. It's going to evaluate what you do and then advise the board as to what it felt. And the board then will take its action, which may be ignore what you thought, or work with you. The board then may work with you to say, we need to hire somebody to do this or get some additional thing or that or something else.
Anyway, my concern is that this is outside of the audit committee's purview. But if that's what the board
Not generally today.
Well, I mean, I was expressing an opinion.
And I think you're right at the extreme. I mean, we're not going to monitor the system for how they do the water meters now.
No.
That's part of the technology.
But if you don't have, if we were looking at it and we find they don't have any,
Yeah.
and it's subject to risk, it's presenting a risk, and we don't want to tell the board,
No.
especially if the town said, we don't worry about that, we don't need to worry about that risk, then we
Yeah.
would be responsible for advising the board, which would then have ultimate authority to do something or not do
Yeah.
something. We don't take any action except advising the board. We're an advisory board. Okay, if we will move to number 5, this is discussion of possible action. The only thing that to be shared today is that RSM, we recommended RSM to do an internal control review. They have done that review and they have shared.
So she needs to
I
know,
have a
is there
question.
closure on these?
Yeah, does that mean that you guys have adopted these and voted on these, or are these going to the board?
Well, they got to go to the board for approval, but we need to approve them as a committee before we give them to the board.
And even if we approve it, the board can still change
Oh, sure.
things. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
starting yet.
Good.
So I move we approve these to present to the board.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Yeah,
You're
thank
right.
you. Sorry.
No, you're right.
You're right. The internal review is done. The town has received a risk matrix. It's responded to the RSM with its comments on it, and I was awaiting RSM coming back with its final matrix of risk and also its final report, which will go directly to the board. The board prefers that it come directly from the auditor and the town manager to the board. So we won't be involved in that at all. We won't be seeing that until after the board sees it.
Okay. But it hasn't been finalized yet, or it has?
Could ask the man that would be.
I was presenting, just in general, how the process worked. They came down, spent about a week with us, and did pretty much, it was a functional review of all 15 different areas, ranging from payroll to year-end evaluation. There were subcategories in that. They
identified, I call it the third, a third, and a third, low risk, high risk,
Gotcha.
medium risk, in a matrix form, prepared that, provided a draft back to the staff to see what was missing or that kind of thing. We responded, and I believe that now they're planning.
Okay, so what comes back is after your response and they,
That's
okay,
right.
all
Will
right.
be a final draft.
Gotcha.
And then a report.
Okay,
And that report will direct you to the board.
right, okay.
And the audit partner will be the one that addresses the board, either in open meeting, depending on what I think he will probably give the board the written report, and then the board can decide at that meeting if it's closed or open, depending on what the results are.
Well,
But the board decides,
The lawyer decides.
right?
Yes.
The lawyer decides. The town
Yes.
attorney decides.
Whether it's
Well,
open or closed.
Yeah, the
With the attorney's advice or counsel.
attorney decides.
Okay, any other further business, any other issues, or,
Not at this time.
Ron, we okay?
Not so far.
Good. Have a motion to adjourn?
You're
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.